So we officially have one suspect left here who could be the all-new Venom. But before we get there, we get this juicy plot twist that sets up for the major reveal. Now, in addition to that here, we see how the other symbiotes have been affected by the events of the Venom War. And then Dylan also comes face to face here with the all-new Venom. Welcome back to Keepin' the Comic, and today we are diving into all-new Venom with issues number 3 and 4. Now, if you remember here from the last time where we ended off, Venom had just gotten shot directly through the face here by Chance. Now, back at this warehouse in Long Island, that's what we pick back up on. And Chance is all upset because he's like, listen, you just lost me $1,000. So Venom is like, do tell as to why. But the reason is here is because Chance had made a bet. And the bet that he made was that it was a sure thing that it was Mayor Luke Cage under the Venom symbiote. How they got similar height, they got that hero build, and how we can tell that Luke Cage misses the action. But Chance is like, that bullet would have bounced just straight off your dome, but instead it went straight through you. So you gotta be under what, 6 feet or something like that? But then Chance is like, Triple or Nothing says that it's probably really Meta Mask under that Venom symbiote. Now, if we remember, Dylan is also outside the building looking in, and he's like, maybe it's Robbie Robertson or even Rick Jones. But then Venom's like, that's a big bet, Chance. Now, what do we say we see you and then raise you? And then Venom like pulls out these big old cannons here on his wrist, which Chance is like, bro, wrist guns are my type of thing. So the rest of the AIM goons that were there, they start firing off here at Venom. So then what does Venom do? Venom starts firing off his bullets? Like, what exactly are those things? Turns out that they're impact webbing bullets. Gooey, sticky symbiote web fluid in a hard candy shell. So that basically takes them down, except for one, who tries to fire off at Venom here. And before they could stop themselves, they're like, nope, oops, I already pulled the trigger. So then his friend that's there with him, his colleague that's there with him is like, it's okay, you still got 5 seconds to access the energy matrix and vent the exponential concussive force through the secondary fusion vector displacement. And I'm like, damn, that was a mouthful. And Venom was thinking the same thing that I was thinking, because he's like, listen, maybe next time you should probably build a safety feature that takes less time to do than to say. But now there was still one AIM goon that was around there here, and this was Dr. Fortismo. So what Dr. Fortismo does is that he turns a blast here on Venom, 150 decibels of it, by the way, and you could tell that Venom is feeling the pain right now. Now, Dr. Fortismo says, he's like, you've grown more resistant to sonic weaponry over the years, but it still packs a punch, doesn't it? But the thing about it is that Fortismo was also blowing Chance away in the background too as well. Now you can tell here that the Venom symbiote is in a lot of pain, and that sound wave is now starting to ricochet all the way back to the window where Dylan was. And for a moment here, I'm like, is the Venom symbiote about to be blown off the host? But then here's what happens. The glass shatters, and the glass shattering cuts Dylan. And that is when the Venom symbiote realizes that Dylan is outside. So he goes off basically into a rage and yells, Dylan! So they jump up and they land right on Dr. Fortismo's face mask or helmet, you guys know what I'm saying, and shatters the mask completely. So then Venom, they say, you want to hurt us, doctor? Fine, we're used to the pain. But when you hurt a child, when you hurt my son, that's when we put our foot down. Venom begins to just clamp down, crunch, 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 destroying the entire suit that Dr. Fortismo is in. And then Venom continues. They're like, that's it, doc. Nice and loud. What about you, Chance? You got your shot lined up? Center, mass, the golden bullseye? Just one question though. How do you like your odds? So Chance is like, all right, listen, I don't want no smoke. And just says like, yo, I'm good. So then what Venom does, they web him up. They web Chance down. But then that's when Venom turns his direction here, or his attention, or their attention, I should say, over to Dylan and grabs him up. Now, Venom tries to make a joke here. It's like, do you know what time it is, young man? But Dylan's not really feeling the jokes right now. It's like, you're making jokes right now. You broke the bond again. You ran away again. You left me with nobody again. That's a joke to you? And Venom continuing on with the jokes is like, sorry, it's just Spider-Man in me. But then Dylan's like, or the Rick Jones in you. And Venom doesn't really take kindly to that whole thing of like, who is in the Venom symbiote? Who's the host of the Venom symbiote type of thing? But then Dylan responds back, he's like, don't. Nice contraction. All that new banter flipping around. The Reed Richards stuff, you think I can't tell tell what's you and what's your new host? You think I'm not gonna find out who it is? But the thing for Venom is that they're like, you shouldn't be trying, Dylan. You should be at home. Flash Thompson set you up with a family. And we'll get a little bit more insight as to what that setup really looks like a little bit later on here. But then Dylan continues, he's like, Top Knot, and he's talking here about Paul. That's the nickname that he's giving Paul here. And the supermodel, he's talking about Paul and MJ. And Dylan continues, he's like, the two rich snots, they don't know me. You're my family. Why aren't I with you? And you talk about Thompson like he's some sort of saint. You know the deal that he made so I could live with the snots, so that Brent could go home to his big house and Normie and Rascal could run around with the young patriots or whatever they're called? Did you ever think to even ask like why Sleeper isn't even with me? So then Venom was like, I know where Sleeper is, Dylan. I'm currently working on it. So Dylan is like, hold on, I, not we? The Venom tries to fix it. He's like, we are doing our best. We're doing our best. It continues on. He's like, look, we can't say too much right now because there's webbed up villains that have ears. But then he continues on with Dylan. He's like, I never abandoned you, Dylan. You're safe with your new foster parents, and your safety is my priority first and always. The bond between us is the bond between parent and child. I would never break that. So Dylan's like, well, why don't you just come back then? But Venom is like, I wish I could. I wish we all could just be a family again, but that's just not how things can be right now. It's nobody's fault. It's just how it is. But it doesn't mean that I love you any less. But Dylan, still playing difficult right now, is like, okay, now I'm thinking it's probably Robbie Robertson here under that symbiote. So Venom's like, will you stop? But then Dylan asks this question. He's like, well, do you at least know where Dad is? And how we check the news every single day after they got rid of the Symbiotes, how he was sighted nearby that church, Our Lady of Saints, but how they never found a body. They didn't find anything nearby there. So he's somewhere out there. So Venom replies and is like, sorry, Dylan, I'd know if he was dead, but I can't sense him at all. Wherever he's gone, I can't follow. So then Dylan again, going back to the suspect list, it's like, okay, so I guess we're down to 3. If it's not Luke Cage in there, then it gotta be Rick Jones, the martial arts jokester. It gotta be either Robbie Robertson, the doting father figure, or the one suspect who would know this safe house existed. Is that you in there, Madam Mask? But then the voice comes out and says, clearly not. And when we look and we see who it is, what a surprise, Madam Mask is here. But then she adds her 2 cents in here. She's like, unless there's someone else in there, you never know, do you? Now, of course, Venom was like, get behind me, Dylan, trying to protect him. And Madam Mask comes out and says, I'm not here to hurt the child, and I'm not here to hurt you either, whoever you are. But I do owe you for covering my escape. Actually, while Forza was fighting you, he wasn't chasing me. So Venom wants to know, he's like, well, how did you escape in the first place? So she explains, she's like, these new shoes that I got for the trial, they were provided by Rikers. It was a directional sonic drill in the heel of one of them. But then she moves on. She's like, anyway, are you going to be leaving with your boy and a nice payout for your pest control services, or do we have a problem? So Venom is like, sorry, you're a bad guy. When we see bad guys, we always have a problem. So then Madam Mask, she begins to fire off. Braka, 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 braka. So then, of course, Venom tries to save Dylan, tries to get him down, and tells Dylan to stay flat on the floor and to crawl and to avoid the smoke. And while Dylan goes low, that he's going to go high. And that's exactly what Venom does. They launch directly at Madam Mask and land a nice clean punch right to her kisser. But then Madam Mask is like, okay, you got me, you've wounded me, Venom, but that's when I'm at my most dangerous. You know I won't go without a fight. Shoot one web and I'll detonate all my ammo, burning this building down to the ground. Your son's already found an exit, and if he's an obedient child, which I'm sure he is, but what about the others? Does everyone you webbed up in this death trap have to burn alive so that you can win a score? So Venom, making a safe decision, is like, okay, we're done here, Madam Mask, and he goes to try to put out the fire. Now later on here, we catch up on Madam Mask, so talking to someone, and she mentions how it's been a challenging day and how she should be getting her beauty rest right now. And the voice replies back and says, oh, I know, I'm a horror if I don't get my 8 hours. Now with that in mind, let's get straight to the point. So Madam Mask is like, the usual point when 2 of our persuasion meet, common enemies, common goals. I want AIM under control and you want them under your control. We can help each other. And she mentions how she's had a run-in here with the new Venom. And even though she had that run-in, she was still able to get a vial, and how Venom didn't even realize that she took it. And when we see who she's talking to, it is our favorite mental organism designed only for killing, MODOK. And this is something that we'll pick up on a little bit later, because in the meantime here, we pick up on this place called North Brothers Island. And here we hear a voice that says, lunch is served toxin, a 4-pound block of chocolate washed down with a bowl of synthesized brain chemicals to cover any gaps in your diet. I know it's basic, but it will keep you alive at least. And this is Flash Thompson here talking to the Toxin symbiote. And Toxin replies back, is like, keep me from dying is more like it, but also how's Brent? So Flash lets him know, he's like, he's at home where a kid his age ought to be. He's safe. But Toxin's like, he was safe bonded to me. So then Toxin thanks Flash here for the chocolate and mentions how if it were up to our other jailers, would starve to death. So that's how we know the symbiotes that were left after the Venom War ended up in jail or in some sort of confinement facility. Now Flash is trying to play things a little bit different here. He's like, listen, I'm more of a trustee, strictly speaking. But Toxin mentioned, he's like, but you're still out there and we're in here. And for how long? When do you get around to firing us off into space? And then Flash explains, he's like, we can't just exile symbiotes to random planets. Much as some people in power would love to, they tried that with the Hulk once. It didn't go great. There's a lot of interstellar diplomacy finding a safe harbor for symbiotes. And then Toxin just sounds all sad and depressed. He's like, because nobody wants us. And then shifts to say, you should let us starve then. Let them execute us. Anything's better than this. This loneliness day after day, you're lucky, Flash. You're a host creature, naturally self-contained. You don't need other people like we do. No being in the universe knows solitude as a symbiote does. So then Flash is like, well, you got Sleeper at least, right? But then Toxin explains, he's like, he's self-contained too. He always was. You know he hasn't said a word since the Venom War? And Flash is like, I just thought it was because whenever he's around me. And then Toxin explains, it's like, it's not anger. It's more like a Zen state. He purrs, he sleeps, he eats like a real Earth cat. He's there a way that Brett would say it. He's chilling. I'm sorry, that made me laugh so hard. Oh my goodness. So then somebody comes in and tells Thompson, he's like, all right, time's up. And when we see who it is here, it's one of the agents that was fighting the Venom symbiote here back in issue 2 when they were out in the street, which now gives us insight, right? It seems as if though AIM are the ones that are currently housing these symbiotes that were kind of left astray here after the Venom War. And she mentions to Flash Thompson, she's like, you're there to feed the freaks and to get status updates, and how Scar isn't paying him to babysit them. But Flash is like, yo, you're not even paying me at all. And those freaks are sentient life forms. And as long as they're in this facility, they should be treated humanely. I'm only doing this to get them safe passage off a hostile planet. Now, Agent Carson, she ain't really trying to hear all that. She's like, listen, if it were up to me, every single symbiote would just be turned back to goo anyways. And every single symbiote host will be rotting in jail right now, including you, Flash. And Flash is like, yeah, you've made yourself pretty clear there. So then Carson's like, I don't know if I have a soldier. You know, we could still arrest those kids you signed up to protect, right? And this is why we now understand what happened to Brand, what happened to Normie. Like, this is kind of all being explained here, Dylan, right? And she continues on, she's like, we could try them as adults anytime we damn well please. And yet out of the goodness of our hearts, and I'm like, goodness of their hearts, like, all right, let's move on. I'm gonna let them cook. And she says, you don't understand that there's an implied transaction in that. And Flash is like, I know the deal I made. So then she continues on, she's like, do you? Because here's the deal that we made. The symbiote containment and rendition department provides certain indulgences. 3 delinquents stay out of jail, and in return, we get the symbiote expertise that only the great Flash Thompson can provide. But he's like, I provided that. So she's like, nah, please, like, get out of here with that. We expect results. And you've been coasting. You've been chit-chatting with your little pet monsters. It's time that you get that whole white suit bloody. So Flash is like, what exactly is that supposed to be? So she's like, let me make this plain. You're anti-Venom, you idiot. There's a new Venom out there. So bring him in. You should have brought him in yesterday. Or we will bring Dylan Brock in tomorrow. All right, so here's where things get really interesting, right? We head over to Midtown, right? And we see these 2 fellas that are just standing outside with this gorgeous woman walking up towards them. So then his friend is like, all right, let me start recording. And when the recording is going on, he's like, shout out to all my little bros, because if you subscribe and learn the techniques, it is this easy. Watch. So then he approaches the woman. He's like, hey, I just wanted to say that is a beautiful necklace on a beautiful lady. Or Stacey, am I right? And I'm like, did he mean to say say Versace? So then she responds back. She's like, sorry, no, it's an image inducer. And then she clicks the button. And then we see that it's Madam Mask. And she's like, the mask, however, that's Versace. So then dude's like, holy crap. And Madam Mask is like, you with the phone, can you switch to a live stream? So he's like, yeah, sure. And then she just straight cocks back and just blows dude's head off. And then proceeds to say, okay, let's see who's watching. Now back over here at the Daily Bugle, we see Rick Jones and Robbie Roberts are here, kind of going a little bit back and forth. It's kind of the same thing really about, hey, it could be you. No, it could be you. Oh, you're asking me about my whereabouts? No, I was here or I wasn't there, right? Until Rick Jones pulls out his phone and shows Robbie that Madam Mask just killed a guy live on a stream. And he mentions how it was cold-blooded murder right in public and how it's not like her, at least not with civilians anyways. So then Robbie's like, well, she's inviting a response from somebody. So Rick Jones is like, yeah, no kidding, I'm gonna head down there. So Robbie's like, you are? And Rick is like, yeah, dude, to cover the story, bro. I'm the Bugle's cape guy. Plus Mask right in the middle of this whole Venom done it thing. And how if she starts sprouting symbiote, I want a front row seat. So Robbie's like, okay, that's plausible. And continues on, he's like, but we both know it's not her under the goo. Or do we? How much do you know, Rick? So then Robbie, he makes plans too to head down there as well. So when we pan back, we see Madam Mask on live stream, and she's like, listen, I know what you're all thinking. When will the police get here? What about the superheroes? Won't someone save us? She's like, have faith in law and order, I say. They'll find out about this very quickly. Iron Man will probably be the first hero on the scene. I'm one of his, after all. Tony and I were romantically involved, you know. He's very passionate in bed. I think that's all the guilt. What do you think? And dude's just like, yo, just please don't kill me. So then she continues on. She's like, if not Tony, then like which heroes are very aligned? So many people are taking a break from the news these days. Does Captain America still have his hotline? Does the Punisher still have a little computer fellow? That's the thing about the heroes. They seem like pillars of status quo, but they're always in flux. Villains though? And right when she says that, guess who pops up? Hey, with them big ass armor suits. And she's like, villains? They're very predictable. So then Dr. Forson is like, okay, Miss Frost, like what you got going on here? And she raises up her gun, but dude's like, you know that our suits are bulletproof, right? So Madam Mask is like, of course I do, Forson, but this isn't a bullet. So then she fires it off. And then when we see what it is, she fires off MODOK. Like MODOK was the bullet. But before it hits Dr. Forson, Venom comes out of nowhere and steps in. And Venom was like, hey, I caught the live stream. What did I miss? But before he could even react, MODOK goes right into his eyeballs. And then the next shot here, we see MODOK inside of Venom. And we're like, how exactly is this happening? So MODOK pops out and bursts through his head and is like, imbecile, do you know how difficult a vial of Pym particles is to come by? So now we understand what that vial was of. And the rest of the AIM crew that popped up, they dip because they see MODOK and they're like, yo, I want no parts of this right now. So then MODOK, he's like, listen, I could have lodged in Forson's skull like a tumor, directing his every action. I would have taken over AIM, his face, his charisma, his loyal goons, but the genius of MODOK behind it all. It was so elegant, so bloodless, but no, I can't have nice things. I am designed only for killing, only for killing, only for killing. Well, fine. So what does MODOK start doing? He starts killing. And that guy that was hosting or was pretty much basically the phone holder, the live stream holder here, he tries to take off. So then what does Madam Mask do? She takes him out too. I'm like, yo, what is going on with Madam Mask right now? Because according to Madam Mask, she's like, nobody leaves unless it's in a box. And Madam Mask, she's not stopping because she now points her gun at everybody else that was there. So Venom is like, no, we got to stop this. Throws a web here at Madam Mask and webs her up. And while she's on the floor, Venom is like, game's over, Mask, you're tagged out. So she's like, am I? And before Venom could even prepare himself, she said, made you look, as MODOK blasts Venom with a psionic beam, and I'm like, ooh, that don't look good. As we see nothing but goo left on the ground, and MODOK is like, whoever this new Venom is, they're inexperienced. Premature banter can be fatal. Let me deal with those webheads, Mask. So then Mask is like, much obliged, but you're losing your touch, George. He's still twitching. So he's like, whoa, that's embarrassing. My psionic murder beam is usually so efficient. The twin minds of a symbiote and a host must have twice the resistance to mental attack. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, all right, well, let's double the dose then, shall we? Then the voice says, excuse me. And then we see Rick Jones. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And he's like, Rick Jones of the Daily Bugle. Mind if I ask you guys a few questions? So then Madam Mask is like, anything for the press, but I have a question for you. He's like, I sealed the elevators to this deck, and by now the building's surely been evacuated anyway. So how did you even get up here? So then Rick is like, that's actually a good point. How did I get up here? And then we start to see this goo coming through Rick Jones's mouth and then starts to cover his body. But then at the same time, we see the Venom symbiote on the ground saying, you? Question mark? And then the voice of Rick Jones says, oh yeah, now I remember. I am the sleeper agent. That's how. And then we see these sleeper marks with the suit. And what I gotta assume here is the AIM technology. So it seems as if though AIM or Rick Jones is working with AIM here as a sleeper agent, which now explains why Sleeper was just sedated on the ground, chilling, as Toxin said, which to me was just like an incredibly weird plot twist here. So my thoughts on two things, right? Either the Venom symbiote does not actually have a host, or as a lot of you have said before, it could be someone else entirely, and they made mention of that here with Madam Mask, right? Now, if it's somebody else, I have one guess, and I hope it's not Paul, but I'm still holding out faith there that from the very beginning, that maybe it still is Robbie. But I would love to know what your thoughts are. Please leave them down below in the comments. Also, if you haven't been keeping up with this series here, check out our playlist down below, which covers the 2 previous issues. And also, as it pertains to the Venom War, we do have a full video on that. That's what happened right before this particular series here started. I had the full story video link down below in the description as well. It's definitely a long one, but you can kind of watch a little by little over time just for some context here. Also, don't forget to leave a like on this video here so that YouTube knows to push it out to a wider audience. Also, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, another way to support this channel is by joining our Patreon here for exclusive perks. We appreciate you watching, and as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!